Welcome to Only in America. I'm Ali Nurani. This week we are doing something entirely different. We're cooking while we're talking. And while we're cooking, we're talking with an award-winning chef on the power of food to express identity while building trust.
After being so many years in the US, I met one after another preconception and myth about Mexicans. You know, what we look like, what we eat, what's our culture. And I really felt that people here just needed to know more about Mexico. You know, there was this idea of people already knew tacos and people already knew guacamole, but there was so much more, and I just wanted to show people how Mexican ingredients and dishes can enrich any table. You know, how we can build bridges and how cultures help enrich each other.
Welcome to the first Only in America episode that is both audio and video. From the National Immigration Forum, I'm Ali Nurani.
Only in America.
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 In a nation of immigrants, food is both a comfort and a connection. It's not just a means of sustenance, but it's also an expression of our identity. Food connects us to traditions and communities bigger than ourselves. A good meal reminds us of home and it honors our roots. It connects us with others. It's a cultural tradition that, frankly, transcends language. A good meal reminds us of our similarities in a world that's often framed by our differences. But while food can help us move beyond and even celebrate our differences, it can also be politicized. People twist a celebration of identity into a symbol of otherness and then play on that fear of the other. In 2016, a few months before the presidential election, Marco Gutierrez, founder of the group Latinos for Trump, used stereotypical imagery of Mexican culture and cuisine in an attempt to sow fear and justify then-candidate Donald Trump's aggressively anti-immigrant platform. If we were only so lucky to have taco trucks on every corner. Now, 2016 may feel like a lifetime ago, but it's clear that this underlying cultural fear still informs anti-immigrant sentiment across America. Food might be a great way to connect to others, but the societal disconnect between our love for tacos and our acceptance of those who prepare them can be seen in the immigration policies pursued by the administration. In fact, while immigrants make up 13% of the U.S. population, a stunning 33% of restaurant and hotel owners are immigrants, which means that immigrants are playing an outsized role in an industry that's expected to create 1 million new jobs by 2026. So as immigrants continue to enrich American culture and create American jobs, it's worth asking, how do we create an America that not only celebrates diverse cuisines, but the people behind them? For Pati Jinich, migration is a common thread that unites her family history with her own personal experience. The granddaughter of European Jews who fled the Holocaust, Pati grew up in Mexico, surrounded by a mosaic of cultures and cuisines. Pati's passion for her home country led her to pursue a degree in political analysis. She aspired to strengthen democratic institutions and civic culture in Mexico. But after moving to Dallas with her family, Pati discovered another passion that helped her connect to her community. That would be cooking. After enrolling in cooking school and teaching Mexican cooking classes, she made a decision. She decided that she was going to take her experience as a Mexican immigrant and help that experience and her desire and her passion for cooking to help Americans understand and to challenge their misconceptions about not only the Mexican community, but Mexico as a country. 8 seasons later, her award-winning TV show, Pati's Mexican Table, has shared the many stories of Mexico with countless viewers and made Mexican cooking and culture accessible to a whole new audience. I recently spent some time with Pati in her kitchen where she told me about her family story and her show's mission. Best of all, she taught me how to prepare nopalitos a la mexicana. You can actually see the episode on our website, immigrationforum.org, and you can hear the conversation here or there on the video. And if you're watching the video, you can even see some of my amazing, well, not so amazing, knife skills. This is a really fun conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Pati, thank you so much.
Ali, thank you for coming to my kitchen. This is a treat.
So this is the first time we've done a podcast episode, not just with video, but in a kitchen while cooking.
Very excited to be the first.
Usually, my questions are terrible, but this time my questions will be terrible, and hopefully I won't chop off my finger.
So your questions will be so amazing because the topics you deal with are so deep and important. And I specialize in tacos. So between your conversation and my tacos, we'll have a great meal.
So what are we cooking?
So I wanted to make something special for you that I love, which is nopales, nopalitos, cactus paros, but I hear you've tried them before.
I've tried nopales, but I've never cooked them.
Okay.
And I've always wanted to learn how.
So this is great. Okay, so this is a nopal.
Okay.
As you know, it's a cactus paro from a cactus plant. And it has all these little thorns that you have to remove or they'll prick your fingers. They're very persnickety. And in Mexico, you can buy them already cleaned and diced, which I think the moment that the U.S. starts doing these, people will just start cooking with them and eating them, and they're incredibly nutritious. So I already cleaned them and cut them into little pieces, and you can see how pretty they are, right?
You were saying earlier that they're like okra. They're kind of the same material, the same texture.
Yes, and they have a similar taste in that they're citrusy, they're like between cucumber, lime, and asparagus, I would say, in terms of taste. But they're so crunchy. You can eat them raw. Not many people eat them raw. You can make smoothies, and they're so healthy. But to cook them, just like okra, they let out these like viscous, gelatinous substance that turns a lot of people off. But you just have to get past that and know how to cook them. So I'm going to show you a very simple method.
Okay.
A lot of people boil them in water, but then all that substance gets there and it's not pleasant to see and to drain. So what you do is you cook them. So here I have my pan, and I eyeballed a couple of tablespoons of oil.
Right.
It's over medium heat. I had like 4 little cactus paros. I'm gonna add them here. And then, I love the sizzle.
So what got you into cooking? Because you didn't start cooking.
No, I didn't, Ali. I actually dealt with things similar to what you're doing. I was a political analyst. I did my undergrad in Mexico City in political analysis. I mean, I wanted to go into philosophy and literature, but UNAM, which is a public university, was on strike. So I did political science, and then I wanted to be an academic, and I wanted to focus on strengthening the democratic institutions of Mexico.
What made you choose that particular field?
That field, well, because I adore my home country, love Mexico, really believe in its people, and was very aware that there were some institutions that needed strengthening, you know, for the improvement of the country, such as the electoral institutions, the civic culture participation, the improvement of rule of law. So all of those things that you study in school. And I kind of kept thinking that if I could add a little grain of sand, you know, to help a country that gave my family so much.
Because your family's history or migration to Mexico is also interesting.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's fascinating. Yeah.
So tell me about it.
So on my father's side, my grandparents came from Poland very early on, before the Mexican Revolution, when they were very, very little. They were fleeing the...
A little salt to the cactus?
Yes, we add a little salt to the cactus. And as you can see, that viscous substance that we were talking about is starting to come out. A little bit like when you cook mushrooms and the water starts to come out.
Yep.
So the trick here is to have all that substance come out and then dry up. Okay, so you can see how like ooey gooey that is.
Ooey gooey being a very technical cooking term.
Very, very. We're being very scholarly here. But no, so anyway, so my grandparents from Poland, immigrants, came from the middle of farmland. And on my mother's side, it was a completely different era. Many years later, my grandparents came, my grandfather from Czechoslovakia and my grandmother from Austria, and they were fleeing the Holocaust. And both sets of grandparents came into Mexico as most of the immigration in the country, just like the Africans and the Caribbeans and most of the Asians and Italians, because Mexico is much more of a diverse, not melting pot, but mosaic than people think. People usually think it's Spanish, you know, old world, and Mexican, native Mexican, but no, there's Asian, Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, there's Jewish, there's Lebanese, there's Italian, there's a lot of African and Caribbean, but most of the immigration waves have come through Veracruz, which is that mouth that opens into the Gulf of Mexico, which happens to have the most incredible food because it's where everything mixed.
Yeah.
So my grandparents came through there and then made their way to Mexico City. But Mexico was an amazing country to them. It gave them an opportunity to start from nothing. And the way that they grew roots was mostly through food. So if you went to their homes when I was growing up, it was this delicious mashup of the Eastern European and some of the Jewish flavors that got woven in with the incredible treasure trove of Mexican ingredients. And so I learned that, from growing up. And then my parents were born in Mexico, of course. Me and my sisters were born in Mexico. And then when I was a young adult, I met my husband, also Mexican, and we decided to move to the US just for a couple of years. I had already graduated political science, and I wanted to be an academic, so I wanted to do graduate work. And I wanted to focus on strengthening democratic institutions. I was stubborn on the improvement of democracy in Latin America. And I started to get interested in the relations between Mexico and the US and the migrant communities. And we moved to Texas, and we were there for like 3 years. And that's where our oldest son was born. And
what was it like those first 3 years? Did you think you'd stay? Or did you
no. So we always thought we were going to come back. And I'm going to start chopping some onion that we're going to throw in there. And I was going to teach you something about onion. Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, you have to hold the knife. This is zero common sense. You have to hold the knife from the blade like this. And then I'm going to do a piece and I'll let you do a piece.
Is it so you have more control over the blade?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Yep.
You have more control over the blade. It's less heavy and it becomes like an extension of your hand.
Okay.
It feels very weird in the beginning. But so look. So I'm cutting half and I'll let you do a little, okay? So I'm going to make little lines horizontally like this. And then I'm leaving space here. I'm not going all the way through. And then I'm making lines here. And notice how I use my fingers. I bend them a little. You don't want to do that because you're leaving yourself very vulnerable. So you go like this. See?
There we go. No pressure.
No pressure. So you hold. You're doing an amazing job already.
My mom taught me how to make my way around the kitchen.
That's perfect.
Wow.
And then when you get there, I have towels for you here. I have a pretty towel that goes with your coat and it goes with my sweater. How about that? Yes.
You seem a little too surprised.
I'm very surprised because when you said I wanted to take knife skills, I thought you had no clue, but you seem deceivingly experienced here.
I can cut an
an onion.
Okay, so you're in Dallas and you think...
So I'm in Dallas and we were there just for a couple of years, Ali. We really had no intention of moving somewhere else or staying abroad. We really wanted to go back to our families and work in Mexico. Something really funny happened.
How fine do you want?
Super fine.
Super fine. Okay. Keep going.
And so what happened was that for like a year and a half, I couldn't go to Mexico because I was applying for my papers. And while you're applying, you're not allowed to travel. And I was in Dallas, which is so close to Mexico, and it feels like Mexico. The weather, the sky, so many people speaking Spanish. You go to the stores and you find Mexican ingredients, but it's a little bit of like a twilight Mexican zone because you find the Mexican ingredients, but they're not really the same. You hear Spanish, but it's not really the same. So I was really missing Mexico like crazy, and I was very nostalgic and homesick. And my way to feel at home in the States was by starting to cook. I was a horrible cook. I cooked nothing. But my way to feel at home in Dallas was to start cooking the food that had nurtured me growing up. So I started stalking people. You know, when I went to grocery stores, Latino international stores, and I heard anybody speak Spanish or they had a Mexican ingredient, I would ask them, what are you going to make with
Really?
that? And what are you going to cook? And Mexicans, the way we open up is through food. We can't resist it. So somebody would say, oh yeah, I'm using that lard to make carnitas. And I would say, how do you make them? And they would say, come over, see.
Really?
So it was quite magical because I started connecting with the Mexican migrant. And it was a fascinating adventure to me because I thought I knew so, when you're young, and I had studied, and it took 3 years to do my thesis on Mexican federalism and the removal of governors from 1860 to 1994. So I thought I knew a lot about Mexico and Mexicans, and here I am in Dallas, meeting Mexicans from places I've never heard of, from places I've never been to, sharing foods that I didn't even know existed. You have your idea of how beans should be, how rice should be. Then you meet somebody from Yucatan and they're like, no, we make our rice like this. So it was like I was so far from home and I was getting to know Mexico while being away, so romantic, so nostalgic, and I grew this hunger to dive into Mexico through food. And I thought about, instead of going to graduate school for political science, I thought about going into food studies. But then I remembered what my mother had said. My parents are divorced, and she always said, never go in the kitchen. You need to be self-sustaining. You need to be a working woman. Don't trust a man. You need to,
Right.
And my husband, who really loved that I was starting to cook and saw that I was fascinated with food, he kept telling me, go in the kitchen. And I was like, oh no, I am not going in the kitchen. And so, long story short, we were moving back to Mexico. By then, I'm learning so much, hearing so many stories about Mexican migrants, just like me, but so many different stories, and I'm really connecting with that migrant story, and starting to connect with my grandparents' experiences. And we're going back to Mexico. My oldest son was already born. He was about to turn 1, and we're packed to go to Mexico. And my husband got an offer to move to DC. And we said no. So these people that offered Danny an opportunity to come work in DC, they said, come just for the weekend, no commitment. Meet the people in our firm, and if you don't like it, you don't have to stay. We came. It was cherry blossom week.
Oh yeah, that's not even fair.
The people who invited Danny hosted us to stay with them, and they lived in a lovely little townhouse in Cleveland Park, and we arrived really late at night, and I woke up in the morning to an upside-down blueberry pound cake that I had never tried. Then they took us to eat soft-shell crabs. Then I opened the newspaper section and looked at the Friday cultural activities, and I was, okay, we can stay a couple more years, and we ended up staying.
Wow.
But then I did a master's, I'm going to add the onion.
Yep.
I did a master's in Latin American studies and wanted to be an academic.
Yep.
And I applied for a job at the Inter-American Dialogue. And I worked there for like a year and a half, working on issues that had to do with democracy. And I was so bored. I was so frustrated because I felt like I couldn't make any difference. Kept, doing this research and writing these papers that I didn't know if Juan Perez was going to read them.
Yeah.
And I was locked in an office, and I really missed interacting with people and cooking. And just one day I got into a sort of early existential crisis of sorts, and I had been tasked with writing a paper that described the differences between the transition to democracy in Peru and Mexico. And a peer asked me if I had tried Peruvian ceviche because it was the best ceviche in the world. He was Peruvian. And I said, no.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Sorry, you're confused. It's Mexican ceviche, that's the best. Of course, without having gone to Peru. And so he said, no, Pati, he said, and we got to ceviche first. So I said, let me research on it. And instead of researching on the democratic process, I started researching
On ceviche.
until late at night, like, who got to ceviche first, the Peruvians or the Mexicans? Why do the Peruvians marinate the fish so lightly and we kill the fish, And anyway, I came to my boss and I said, I'm of no use to you. I'm just thinking about food all the time. I resigned.
I'm just thinking about ceviche.
Yes. enrolled in cooking school, started teaching Mexican cooking, and here you have me.
Wow.
Making nopales for Ali.
Thank you. And I saw that when you started thinking about doing a show,
Yes.
that you had made a decision to focus on Mexico.
Yes.
Why?
Because after being so many years in the US, I met one after another preconception and myth about Mexicans. You know, what we look like, what we eat, what's our culture. And I really felt that people here just needed to know more about Mexico. You know, there was this idea of people already knew tacos and people already knew guacamole, but there was so much more, and I just wanted to show people how Mexican ingredients and dishes can enrich any table. You know, how we can build bridges and how cultures help enrich each other. And it was also because I was fascinated with my own home country. So that's how it started, and season 1 started with a tiny budget, and it was very hard to get into, you know, the PBS system because all of the public TV stations have to approve of a pilot and a concept. But now we're going on our eighth season.
At what point in that first season, maybe the second season, did you realize that, okay, this is it. This is what I want to be doing?
I have to tell you, from the moment I went to cooking school, and I realized how much I loved it, and my friends started asking me to teach them Mexican food, and I realized that cooking and cooking schools don't have Latin or Mexican in their repertoire. I felt like that's what I was meant to do, and I loved it. And how it got into media, and I'm just gonna chop a chile.
Yep.
You like spicy?
Yes.
So it was like I hesitated, Ali, to switch careers for 2 years. But once I resigned, all bets were off because I was taking the biggest leap of faith.
Yeah.
And once I jumped into it, I didn't do much research on all the obstacles that I would face. And I've been asked, you know, if you knew all the obstacles that you had to go through, would you do it again? And I always say, I wish I could say yes, but no. So if there's something that you're passionate about and you want to do, don't research on it. You're going to freeze.
Don't ask questions.
Don't ask questions. Just jump.
As you're putting together an episode,
Yes.
what are you trying to tell your audience?
So every season we go into a different region of Mexico. And I started going to places that I already knew, because it's like I want to show people my Mexico City. I want to show people Puebla. So I wanted to bring people back to what I already knew because I felt strong there. And what happened was every time I went back, there were new things. They were changing things. And not only did I want to show the things that I knew, but I was excited to share the new things that I was learning. It's just an incredibly humbling activity. So what's happened is, as the seasons have gone by, I've gone from wanting to share everything that I know to wanting to go to places I have no idea about. Season 8 is going to be focused on Sinaloa. I want to go to places that have a lot of content. I want to go to places that I want to understand and that I think need a chance to tell their stories. Trying to expand people's view on themes they think they know. So what happens when people move that connects very much to my story? Because I've moved, my grandparents moved, my kids are Mexican American, they're also Jews, you know, it's all these communities. So what happens when people move and you bring the place that you come from with you, you know? And once you get to that new place, you want to give it, you want to share it, but you also grow roots and you find a way to make it work with what you have. And it's the story of humanity, right?
So one question I wanted to ask. So,
Yes.
you know, it feels like many people, many Americans, just to probably unfairly stereotype, are afraid of Mexico.
Yes.
Right? But they love Mexican food.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So how do you use food to help people not be afraid of the people behind the food?
Yes, this is a great question. I love that question. And I think that cooking and food is really the most open and noble space where you can get to know the other and the foreign and the immigrant. Because with food, you're hungry, you want to eat it, like your walls come down. Because we're animals too, you know? So I find that it's the place that allows for the most communication. So I guess I just want to show the humanity.
So we were talking before we started about
Yes.
social media a little bit.
Yes.
And, social media in many ways breaks down the wall between you and your audience.
Yes.
So when you're looking at your Instagram comments or your Facebook comments,
Yes.
are there things that surprise you?
Yes, absolutely. So, because of the political climate that we're living in today, and all these rhetoric against Mexicans and against immigrants and the wall and you would expect for there to be sort of rechazo, like a not wanting Mexican food,
Right.
but we are living in the like highest height of popularity of Mexican cooking. So many times I will go to the profiles of the people commenting, and it's people saying, no more Mexicans in America, or build a wall, but they want their taco night. So
And they want to learn from you how to make tacos.
yes. So for me, it's like I'm very excited in that, yay, they love tacos, they love Mexican food. So it's just getting past that. There was one comment that really. I'm usually very understanding in that I'm not judgmental.
Yeah.
Anybody can have their own comments. You don't know where or why, somebody's commenting something. But I find that the environment is getting increasingly politicized and radicalized and deciding who is or isn't a label, right? And as a Mexican immigrant, Jew, now American, now whatever, I think I break a lot of misconceptions just because. But so this one comment, I was in Tucson and I went into a restaurant store and they had Nutella Tamales. Okay? Nutella Tamales. And so I took a photo of the Nutella Tamales and just put it up on Twitter and just commented something like, you guys, with a question mark. Like, what do you think? Ali, I mean, it was crazy. The thing started getting retweeted and
really?
Fired up, and people started commenting really nasty things like white people need to get off of Latin, white people need to leave Mexican food alone, white people need to so much hate
over Nutella.
So much, yes. And I was like, I commented back because usually I just let it slide, and I said, did you know that the people making these Nutellas are brown Mexicans? They're not white, and they're Mexicans living in Tucson, and they're making Nutella Tamales because they want Nutella Tamales. Because if you go south of the border, you will find that people love Nutella.
We could have an entire conversation over Nutella,
but according to the police of like what's right and what's wrong, Mexicans are not allowed to eat Nutella because we need to retain some Mexicanness that doesn't allow us to maybe have ketchup or pizza or hamburgers.
Or people should not be mixing Nutella with tamales because tamales should be Mexican only.
Yes, but the thing is, tamales, if you think about tamales, many tamales have pork as a filling. Pork came from the Spanish. Pork wasn't native Mexican. So all these compartmentalizing of people now are telling me, what I need to do or not to be Mexican, and I really got upset. And I got a few apologies over there, but it's the only time where, and it's not like I'm advocating there should be Nutella tamales on every corner, but make your tamales with whatever you want, as long as they're good tamales.
Oh, okay.
And they have good masa, and they taste good, Okay.
Okay, where are we now?
So now this is cooked.
Okay.
We have the nopalitos a la mexicana, and here we could add scrambled eggs and make, nopal con huevo, which is a great breakfast. But I can also make you a taco.
Okay.
So you can taste the nopalitos like this with some queso fresco.
Oh, yes.
So these you can use as fillings for tacos. These you can use with scrambled eggs as a breakfast. You can stuff an omelette.
Yep. If you were running an advocacy organization, trying to help Congress pass immigration laws, what is the meal that you think would change an opponent's mind?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think enchiladas are.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Like a fabulous casserole of enchiladas is irresistible.
Wow.
Because You're honoring the tortilla in the most incredible way, with a delicious feeling like seasoned chicken or chicken tinga, and then the rolled like really good corn tortillas, and then with a really nice salsa verde and some crease and melted cheese. And I would do something homey, like a big enchilada casserole.
That is not the answer I was expecting.
What?
I didn't even know
something fancy?
I didn't even know what I was expecting, but that
And
was...
you know why?
But enchiladas, you were absolutely right. They're like you eat them all in the same dish.
And they're easy and they're not so foreign.
Yeah.
You're understanding, another culture, but you're also eating how much you love it and how familiar it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Your taquito.
Thank you. And then my last question as we're eating here. Go ahead and serve yourself.
Yes. I don't know if you need salt.
I'm sure it's perfect. So the name of the podcast is called Only in America, right? And I ask every guest the same question.
Yes.
So just finish the sentence. Only in America. ...
Oh my gosh. Only in America could I do what I do, which I absolutely adore.
Thank you.
I don't know if you need salt.
Oh, wow. That is so good.
Support for the National Immigration Forum comes from the James Irvine Foundation, expanding opportunity for the people of California, and from the Carnegie Corporation of New York, established in 1911 by Andrew Carnegie to promote the advancement and diffusion of knowledge and understanding.
Pati Jinich is host of the popular James Beard award-winning and Emmy-nominated PBS series Pati's Mexican Table. You can find out more information about Pati on our website, immigrationforum.org, and you can visit our YouTube page to actually see the video. And while you're there, please take a second to subscribe to Only in America. Only in America is produced and edited by Emily Chow, Joanna Taylor, and Megan Wetmore. Kathleen Farrell is executive producer. And I'm Ali Nirani. Thank you so much for listening to Only in America.